All right, let's unpack this. The file we received this week for our deep dive is, it's something else.
It really is.
It doesn't just read like a standard clandestine operations report. It's more like the opening of some high-concept psychological thriller.
A thriller written by a forensic scientist, maybe?
Exactly. We are diving into a story of, well, twin identity, some really extreme tradecraft, and a plot so terrifyingly designed it would have just devastated the American heartland.
And it all hinges on this extraordinary coincidence.
But
This is what sets up the entire operation, which is codenamed Heavy Rain.
right.
We're tracking the story of a man named Paul Bern. He's a forensic artist in Austin, Texas, and his very meticulous life was just violently upended
Hi, what?
by the sudden, horrifying reality of his identical twin brother, Jude, a twin he never ever knew existed.
So our mission here is to take the documents related to this operation and just distill what happened. We need to understand the strategy behind the assassination of Jude Lerner, the CIA agent.
And the nature of the absolute blackmail that was forced upon his brother, Paul Bern.
And most critically, I think, the specific technical details of this massive radiological terror plot that was orchestrated by Ghazi Baida.
It's all about seeing how the most personal form of identity, your own skull, became the crucial pivot point for global counterterrorism.
It's incredible.
We need to keep 4 key players in mind as we go through this. First, you have Paul Bern, the artist.
And his mirror image, Jude Lerner, who used the alias Jude Teller. He's the CIA operative.
Then there's the target, Ghazi Baida, a feared Hezbollah mastermind.
And finally, a man named Vicente Mondragón.
A facially disfigured contractor whose personal vendetta nearly derailed the entire mission.
And the concept tying it all together is this precise, undeniable match of an identical cranial structure.
The identical skull.
Okay, so we start, believe it or not, pretty innocuously in Austin, Texas. Paul Bern is a forensic artist.
Right, so his whole world revolves around creating a face from dust or a collection of bones.
Yeah. The source material describes his studio as meticulously organized. You've got charcoal dust, drawing tables, easels, paints.
And the perfect symbol for his job, a full skeleton on a chrome stand.
And this meticulousness, the sources imply, is his way of coping. His wife, Tess, had recently died.
And this very professional, very controlled environment is juxtaposed with the fragile presence of a young woman named Alice Lau.
Alice is 17. She's the daughter of Bern's close friends, and she's dealing with a severe neurological condition, aphasia, from a brain injury.
Now, when most people hear aphasia, they think of someone who struggles to speak or understand language at all.
Right.
But the sources are really clear that Alice is verbally fluent. She can hold conversations, her syntax is correct, her grammar is fine.
But the literal meaning of the words, the semantics, it just doesn't compute for her.
Exactly. It's like hearing a beautifully composed piece of music in a language you don't speak. You get the rhythm, the emotion, but not the narrative.
That's a perfect analogy. And this inability to rely on semantics forced a fascinating and really powerful cognitive compensation.
It did. The sources detail that Alice developed an uncanny degree of sensitivity to what they call feeling tone.
Okay, so let's unpack that. What exactly is feeling tone?
It's the entire unconscious repertoire of communication. We're talking microexpressions, the dilation of pupils, those subtle shifts in vocal tone prosody, they call it, the timing of gestures.
All the things we usually process subliminally to figure out emotional context.
Right. Alice's brain, since it sidelined the part that processes meaning, just rerouted all its cognitive power into analyzing these nonverbal cues. She doesn't hear a lie. She feels the discordance. She feels the gap between the word being spoken and the emotion being faked.
And this is what makes her essentially a human lie detector.
Yes, because if you're trying to lie, you consciously try to camouflage that deception. You have to mime what you think genuine feeling tone looks like. You're trying to sell a false emotion.
But that conscious mimicry creates a tiny lag, right? A break in the performance or maybe an over-exaggeration.
And Alice, focusing entirely on that emotional context, she registers that break instantly, which is precisely why her reaction is so extreme when the first key character walks into Bern's studio, Becca Haber.
Becca Haber, described as tight wound, agitated. She comes in claiming her husband is missing in Mexico City and, just like that, presents Bern with proof of his death.
And the proof she brings is just chilling. A human skull and a detached mandible.
And she lifts it out of a hat box by sticking her thumb right into the foramen magnum, that large opening at the base of the skull.
That image alone just sets the tone for this entire story. It's a detail Bern would never forget.
Haber's story sounds plausible enough on the surface. She says the police in Mexico City were dismissive, so she paid a kid on a dark street for proof, and instead of photos, she got the skull.
And she wants Bern to reconstruct the face so she can seek legal options internationally.
But plausibility doesn't pass the Alice test.
Not at all. Alice becomes absolutely galvanized. She's squirming, she's agitated, she's blurting out language that is grammatically perfect but semantically, well, nonsensical.
The source quotes her directly. She says things like, "You're in ropes if that's on this very side."
And, "Can you see through a flowing window on the outside of another thought that you believe?"
Which to Bern just signals extreme agitation. Alice is sensing a complete rupture between Haber's words and her real intent.
She knows Haber's lying. The question is, about what?
Bern takes the case, but he's immediately suspicious. Becca leaves abruptly, gives a fake hotel contact.
And later, Bern confirmed she never even registered as a guest anywhere. She was just a delivery system. The courier for the skull, nothing more.
So the moment of forensic truth comes when Bern starts his analysis. Now, in a normal reconstruction, you'd compare the skull to dental records, x-rays, if you have them.
But here, Bern does something extraordinary.
Yeah.
And horrifying. A self-check.
He takes the client's skull and places a tracing of his own skull, a standard anatomical tracing he uses for teaching onto a light table.
He overlays the two, and they match.
Not just similar, identical. A perfect millimeter by millimeter cranial match.
I mean, can you imagine that moment? It must have been an absolute existential crisis.
It leads him directly, the sources state, to the shocking and incomprehensible reality that this skull belonged to a man who shared his exact genetic and cranial structure.
This wasn't just a resemblance. It was confirmation of a biological duplicate.
The forensic implications here are just profound.
They are. I mean, identical twins share DNA, of course.
Yeah.
But the skull, the actual cranial structure, can have minor variations, from environment, diet, trauma.
Right.
So for a forensic artist to discover a skull that is a perfect match to his own, down to the subtlest curves and densities you can see in a tracing, it confirms beyond any doubt that the skull belongs to his monozygotic twin brother.
A brother he never knew he had.
And the trauma of that discovery is compounded by the fact that the skull was delivered by a liar, and it had clearly met a brutal end.
The scientific confirmation comes swiftly and painfully after that. Bern runs DNA tests.
On 2 molars from the skull, and on his own sample.
And the result confirms it. They are monozygotic twins. Identical. The man in the box was his brother Jude Lerner.
And this is the moment the forensic mystery just explodes into a global geopolitical thriller.
Because Bern soon learns that his brother, Jude Lerner, used an alias Jude Teller and was a CIA operations officer.
And he was involved in a highly sensitive, clandestine assignment, Heavy Rain.
So what was the focus of Heavy Rain? What was the objective?
It was about getting close to Ghazi Baida,
one of Hezbollah's most feared and surgically elusive terrorists.
And Baida was operating primarily out of the lawless Triple Border region. We've talked about this area before, but just for context, this is where the Iguazu and Paraná rivers meet.
At the borders of Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay.
Yes, it's essentially a jurisdiction-free zone, a sanctuary. It's a true nexus for illicit finance, drug trafficking, and terrorist groups.
So not just Hezbollah.
No. Hezbollah, Hamas, even, according to some intelligence reports, remnants of the Aryan nations and the IRA. The sheer volume of untraceable commerce and how easy it is to just slip between 3 different countries makes it ideal for planning large-scale operations.
And Jude's job was to penetrate Baida's inner circle in this very complex environment.
And his cover was just genius.
He posed as a Texas artist, right,
Yeah.
to blend into Mexico City's high-end art community.
That was the social cover.
Yeah.
But his actual functional cover, his operational bona fides, was as a trafficker in stolen pre-Columbian artifacts.
Moving high-value pieces from where?
From Guatemala through Mexico and ultimately to a buyer in Houston.
And this is a critical piece of intelligence tradecraft. They call it a backstop.
Yes. And we should define that for the listener. What makes a backstop effective, especially in a world where Baida is known for his paranoia and extreme vetting?
Right.
A backstop isn't just a story you tell. It's a verifiable, functional secondary life that explains why you are where you are and why you have money.
And the agency spent 6 months building this particular smuggling pipeline. It had to be legitimate enough to withstand aggressive outside vetting.
Exactly. If Baida checked Jude's history, he wouldn't find Jude Teller, the CIA agent. He'd find Jude Teller, the successful, slightly shady art smuggler.
with real contacts, real money flowing through real illicit channels, and a history of successful high-risk deliveries.
And that provides the crucial credibility you need to get close to someone like Baida.
And it worked. The cover worked. Jude successfully infiltrated the network. He used the smuggling route to get meetings in Paraguay's Ciudad del Este.
He had achieved the near impossible, gaining the trust of a man known for his extreme reliance on plastic surgery and operational security.
But trust in that world is fleeting.
Very. Jude disappeared for 6 weeks, and his handler, a man named Lex Kevern, confirmed his fate through a shocking piece of evidence.
A digital recording.
Yes, obtained by Mexican intelligence, the Agencia Federal de Investigaciones.
This video confirms the ultimate betrayal, and the details in the source documents are just. They are brutal.
The camera was secretly mounted in the ceiling of a location in Tepito,
A dangerous, centuries-old neighborhood in Mexico City known for high crime and clandestine activities.
The video shows Jude, who they refer to as the Anglo, and he's been captured by Khalil and Ahmad, two of Baida's cell principals.
And the first act is immediate. Electroshock.
Specifically, they use a stun device on his neck and ears.
Why that specific detail? Why not just subdue him?
It's tactical, and it's also deeply symbolic. The shock to the neck and ears would cause instantaneous paralysis and intense pain. It stops him from shouting, from struggling.
Or most importantly, from activating any kind of dead man switch or signal he might have been carrying.
Exactly. It ensures a silent, immediate capture. But what happens next shows the internal fractures within Baida's own network.
Khalil suddenly turns and kills Ahmad, the other cell principal.
Yes. The analysis suggests Khalil was covering his tracks. He may have been the one who revealed Jude's identity, maybe under torture from Baida, and was now eliminating the only witness to the execution.
Pure conjecture, but it fits the pattern.
It's operational cleanup.
Then a bald man enters. The source describes him as having a dark mole the size of a raisin.
And he's the one who performs the ultimate act of degradation. He cuts out Jude's tongue with a knife.
The cruelty is calculated. He doesn't stop there.
No. He repeatedly beats Jude in the face with the severed tongue before he tosses it to a dog, who immediately eats it.
Jude chokes to death on his own blood while this is happening, and then the bald man plunges a knife into his chest just to be sure.
This isn't just murder. It's a statement. It's an act of public desecration in a clandestine setting, showing total operational dominance and ensuring there is zero doubt about what happens if you fail.
And removing the tongue, that speaks to Baida's paranoia, making sure the agent, even in death, couldn't communicate a final word, a name, or a signal.
The shocking nature of Jude's death meant that Kevern, his handler, had to move immediately to protect the larger objective.
It was.
Baida had to believe Jude was still alive and just lying low. If Baida knew Jude was dead, the entire smuggling route, their most valuable asset, would be shut down and compromised.
So, 4 weeks after the murder, Kevern authorizes an extreme countermeasure.
An independent raid. They brought in Vicente Mondragón's men to liquidate the entire cell involved in Jude's murder.
The liquidation was staged as a drug deal gone sour.
Right. They took drugs and money to reinforce that cover story for the local authorities, and they retrieved that vital surveillance video. The goal was operational denial.
They needed a replacement for Jude.
And Bern, the identical twin, was the only option on the planet.
This brings us to Vicente Mondragón. And he's not just a contractor, he is quite a character.
A high-value asset, formerly a seasoned chief, Mexican intelligence, but now hideously disfigured.
The source spends a lot of time on his appearance. Lidless eyeballs, raw, moist, featureless flesh. He has to use a facial spritz constantly because he can't blink.
His lips, the source notes, seem startlingly out of place in this landscape of scar tissue.
Mondragón is basically a man forced to live without a face, and he is the one tasked with forcing Bern into this operation.
His mandate is blunt. He tells Bern, you will have to portray Jude, live as Jude, interact with others as Jude.
And Bern rightly refuses. Of course he does. He's a civilian, a forensic artist, he's grieving his wife, he's not a trained assassin or an operative.
He argues he'll crack under the pressure, that he just doesn't have the skills.
But Mondragón's leverage is absolute and cruelly personal.
The leverage is Alice Lau.
Mondragón reveals that his surveillance team tracked Alice. They installed digital video surveillance cameras in Bern's lower bedroom.
And they have video stills that were taken after Alice, because of her condition, misplaced a swimsuit.
And Mondragón frames these stills to imply sexual abuse.
Let's just pause on that. This is a level of moral depravity that goes way beyond operational necessity. They're targeting a brain-injured minor to leverage a civilian.
Does the source offer any insight into what kind of operation would justify this?
It just speaks volumes about the desperation of the agency and the ruthless calculation of Mondragón. He is playing a game of total control.
He didn't just threaten Bern. He chose leverage that would destroy the entire support structure around him. The Lawes family, Alice and Bern's own professional reputation.
Bern realized that if those photos were released, even if he was proven innocent later, the moral and professional damage would be irreparable. He'd never recover.
He had no choice.
None. It's the ultimate ethical compromise used for the ultimate operational gain.
The crash course starts immediately. Bern flies into Toluca Airport, and he's driven straight to Jude's apartment in Condesa, Mexico City.
There he meets Susana Mejia. She's Jude's partner and handler, described as beautiful but irritable.
And she is instantly unimpressed by Bern's civilian awkwardness, his lack of Jude's natural charisma.
Susana's job is basically to bridge the gap between Paul Bern, the man who draws faces, and Jude Teller, the man who lives lies.
And she just dumps a trove of intelligence on him.
Jude's complete case files on CDs. This wasn't just a biography, it was the entire operational blueprint.
What kind of detail are we talking about here?
Everything. Meticulously detailed smuggling routes from Guatemala into Houston. Specific drop points, names of contacts, who to bribe, who to threaten, code words, timing schedules.
And Jude's psychological notes on key associates, including Mazen Sabella and Baida himself.
The source stresses that Bern was experiencing total information overload. He's trying to absorb a lifetime of espionage training in just a few hours.
But they find a single powerful asset they never anticipated.
Genetics.
Susana notices that Bern naturally exhibits some of Jude's mannerisms. The way he sits, the specific way he crosses his legs, his hand gestures.
And a shared tendency to look at a speaker's mouth instead of their eyes. This is the genetic blueprint manifesting as behavioral similarity.
It's the saving grace of the mission.
It really is. While Bern lacked the training, he already had the subconscious body language cues that would pass an initial look. He was already genetically halfway to being Jude.
And for Bern, this must have been profoundly disturbing. The sources emphasize this sense of an overlapping self.
He's forced to wear Jude's clothes, which fit perfectly. He's sleeping in Jude's bed, breathing Jude's air. The apartment is described as smelling of old wood, paint, canvas, cigarettes, and the faint presence of women.
He isn't learning a role. He's stepping into an alternate reality that was always biologically possible for him.
He's not just impersonating his brother. He's living the life he unknowingly rejected at birth. And that psychological foundation, that blurred line between Paul and Jude, is what allows him to survive what happens next.
So Bern, adopting an aggressive posture to overcome his civilian fear, he pushes back against Susana's extreme caution.
He takes a call from a guy named Mingo, one of Jude's low-level contacts. Mingo insists he has crucial information about Baida.
They set up a meeting quickly at a place called Club Cuica in Zona Rosa, waiting by a bronze statue of a nude samba dancer.
And Bern's choice of location shows he's absorbing the tradecraft. He uses this busy public landmark as a natural surveillance detection point. Anyone watching them would stand out.
But in the lawless chaos of Mexico City, surveillance detection means nothing against sudden, targeted violence.
The scene just explodes. Before Mingo can reveal anything substantial, two shoeshine boys, actual kid assassins, murder him point-blank with a huge handgun.
And they flee instantly on motorcycles. It's fast, chaotic, ruthless. It's designed to communicate that Baida's reach is everywhere.
Mingo, in his dying moments, manages to pass a crumpled piece of paper to Bern.
On it is a name. Estelle de Leon fears.
Susana immediately screams at Bern to run and to shatter his cell phone, fearing Mingo's device was used to track them to that spot.
They barely escape, and Bern now knows two things. Baida is highly aware, and this woman's name is paramount.
Despite being drenched in sweat and completely disoriented, Bern is rushed straight into his first major face-to-face meeting.
He's meeting Mazen Sabella, Baida's associate, at an opulent Spanish colonial home in the affluent Bosques de las Lomas district.
This is it. This is the true test of Jude's identity.
Sabella is performing what the sources call a personal polygraph test through intense scrutiny. He's watching Bern's micro-expressions, his reactions, looking for any inconsistency with the Jude Teller he knows.
But Bern sticks strictly to the smuggling cover story. He reinforces his identity as a businessman who is only concerned with profit and confidentiality.
He handles a critical interrogation point really well. He refuses to give up the name Estelle.
He argues that violating confidentiality is how he stays alive and in business. He says, "I'm a partner in profits, not a partner in betrayal."
His commitment to the smuggler persona, even under fire, provides the necessary credibility.
And here's this interesting analytical nugget from the source. Bern notices that Sabella, despite his intense focus, is kneading his hands under the table.
Bern, now hyper-aware of these nonverbal cues, the Alice effect kicking in, realizes Sabella is under crushing pressure.
This man, who should be completely in control, is internally panicking.
And then Sabella drops the strategic bomb.
He announces that Ghazi Baida is ready to defect.
He says he's an old lion, tired, devoting most of his energy to just staying alive.
And in exchange for safe passage and a retirement fund, Baida will give the U.S. everything. Names, dates, relationships, strategies, 1,000 reasons never to sleep again.
This instantly changes the entire operational goal from a high-risk assassination to the acquisition of the biggest intelligence haul of the decade.
But the key to this defection, Sabella reveals, is Baida's strategic insight into terror.
Let's spend some real time on this. This is the core of Baida's terrorist philosophy. He looked at 9/11, the event that defined post-millennium terror, and he concluded it failed on a psychological level. Why?
Baida saw 9/11 as merely a shock, not as a mechanism for creating perpetual terror.
What's the difference?
He reasoned that high-profile attacks on symbolic targets like New York or D.C. lead to an immediate, intense hardening of security in those very locations. It creates high-value, high-cost targets that are very difficult to replicate. America was shocked, but they rebuilt and they secured the coastlines.
So his strategic pivot was to target the heartland.
Exactly. Baida believed that true terror requires creating perpetual dread, suffocating the population's peace of mind everywhere.
To do that, you have to target soft, unexpected areas, places like Des Moines, Maryville, Oklahoma City, a regional football game.
Places where security is, as this source says, non-existent compared to coastal cities. The attacks had to be simultaneous, lethal, and geographically diverse to prove that nowhere was safe.
If the enemy can strike with ease in Wichita, Kansas, or Little Rock, Arkansas, then the American psyche has to assume that every town, every church, every school is a potential target.
And the political and social stability would just collapse under the weight of that perpetual low-cost threat. That is the genius and the horror of Baida's strategic calculation.
So while Bern is successfully navigating this whole defection ruse back in Mexico City, the operation is collapsing.
Because of the uncontrolled variable, Mondragón.
Susana had confirmed Bern's success, but she had also relayed that critical name Mingo provided, Estelle de Leon Ferres.
Kevin, still believing the defection is real, authorizes Mondragón to find her, to secure the asset.
And Mondragón, obsessed with revenge, uses this as an opportunity to pursue his own 3-year vendetta.
Right. Baida had tried to kill him in London, which is what left him hideously disfigured, forcing him to live without a face. Mondragón's motive is pure burning vengeance.
He captures Estelle, and through brutal coercion, he forces her to reveal the devastating truth.
The defection is a fake. Sabella is actually Ghazi Baida himself. He's living under the alias Daniel Spoda, and he's seeing Estelle's sister, Carletta.
So Baida wasn't seeking passage out. He was playing Jude. He was using the twin as a final, desperate gambit.
And Mondragón confirms his motive. He plans to kill Baida himself in front of Kevin's people.
And now we have to connect this to the payload. Why the elaborate defection ruse?
Because Baida was actively managing the final stages of the terror plot. And the sources confirm the horrific details.
This plot began a year earlier.
Yes. When a man named Ziad Khalif smuggled 2 kilos of plutonium-240 out of a Russian nuclear research lab in Obninsk.
2 kilos of plutonium-240. It's crucial to understand the implications of this specific isotope. Pu-239 is the preferred weapons-grade isotope for bombs.
Right, but Pu-240 is primarily reactor-grade. It's often deemed too complex to use in a straightforward bomb because of its high spontaneous fission rate.
But they weren't building a bomb, they were building a radiological dispersal device, a dirty bomb delivered as a lethal respiratory agent.
Precisely. They focused entirely on inhalation lethality. The complexity of the operation involved sophisticated aerosolizing equipment.
Benning Technologies' aerotight propellant filling equipment set up in a secret warehouse in Mexico City.
And the goal was to take that Pu-240 and grind it down to the optimal particle size for deep lung penetration.
So What was the delivery mechanism? How do you deploy a radioactive isotope without getting caught moving massive equipment around?
That's the genius of the tradecraft. The product was packaged into common, unassuming aerosol cans of Dempsey's Best V-Belt lubricant.
Something you'd find in any auto parts store.
And the aerosolized plutonium had an average micron size of 3.
That technical detail, 3 microns, is absolutely critical. Why is that specific size so lethal for inhalation?
It's the respiratory sweet spot.
Mhm.
Particles larger than, say, 10 microns, they get filtered out by your nose and throat. You can cough them up.
Okay.
Particles that are much smaller than 3 microns can just be exhaled. But 3 microns is the perfect size to bypass the body's natural defenses and settle directly into the alveoli, the deep air sacs of the lungs.
And once it's lodged there?
It's retained indefinitely. It guarantees a lethal, slow, but certain dose of alpha radiation. The equipment was specifically designed to achieve that highly lethal particle size.
The stealth factor is unnerving. 12 of these deadly cans, disguised as lubricant, were shipped north to El Paso.
And then distributed by internal courier to 12 separate cities, from North Carolina to Nevada.
And the compartmentalization was near total. 12 separate sleeping mentors had spent a year or more gaining access to HVAC systems in high population density buildings.
Right. They were maintenance workers, cleaners, security guards, people with legitimate, unquestioned access.
And the timing was designed for maximum carnage and psychological dread.
The easiest targets, the ones with the most accessible HVAC systems, were scheduled for Sunday morning. 5 large midtown and suburban churches and synagogues.
In Oklahoma City, New Orleans, Little Rock, Charleston, and Raleigh.
And the assessment was terrifyingly precise. Aerosolizing the plutonium directly into the return air ducts of those buildings would mean over 7,000 people would receive a lethal, invisible dose in under 2 minutes.
It fulfills Baida's heartland strategy perfectly. Simultaneous, high-casualty, soft-target attacks in 5 distinct, geographically separated locations.
Leveraging the infrastructure security gaps in the non-coastal regions.
The entire operation comes to a head at a hotel where Bern is meeting Baida, who's still posing as Sabella.
This final meeting is intended to solidify the fake defection. But Mondragón, who has Susana tied up in his car, calls Bern on a secure line and confirms his plan to kill Baida.
Kevern intercepts the call and rushes his team, but the chaos is already set in motion.
Baida's men, including Carleta de Leon, Estelle's sister, are there meeting. Mondragón's assassins arrive. The source just describes absolute mayhem.
Carleta is shot in the head, Baida is wounded in the leg and arm, and Bern, the civilian artist, he gets his initiation, a soundless bolt of fire tearing through his thigh from a pistol shot.
Kevern and Susana arrive. Susana, now free of her bonds, kills the remaining guards. Mondragón's ops guy, Quito, charges into the room.
Man, in the scuffle, Quito crashes into Mondragón,
forcing Mondragón's own knife hand to inflict a grievous neck wound on Baida.
Baida, now dying, confirms the ultimate deception. The defection was a ruse to have U.S. intelligence witness the death of a fake Baida double while the real one escaped in the chaos.
In his final act, a moment of extraordinary arrogance, is to confirm his personal victory over Jude by using a ballpoint pen to write a final secret number on the inside of Bern's thigh.
Bern, fueled by adrenaline and rage and just mission necessity, sees his moment.
He executes Mondragón point blank with a silenced pistol, ending the contractor's revenge plot.
Baida, grievously wounded, tries to crawl away. Bern and Susana tackle him.
And the sources describe Bern, driven by some animal instinct, dragging the terrorist master onto the deck and drowning Baida in the shallow water of the cove.
Paul Bern, the forensic artist, completed the ultimate mission his twin brother had started, the elimination of Ghazi Baida.
Following that operational climax, Bern needed clarity, not just about the mission, but about his own existence. He meets Jude's adoptive mother, Regina Lerner.
And she reveals the truth about their origin. Bern and Jude were separated at birth.
By their biological mother. She was fleeing a powerful man, a judge who was their biological father.
And the mother's fear was that if the twins were found together, the judge's investigators would easily connect the dots because of their unique, identical features.
So her decision was a desperate tactical move. She left Bern at Lanier Memorial in Atlanta and Jude at St. Jude's Charity Hospital in Memphis. She believed separating the monozygotic twins was the only way to confuse the search and protect them both from the judge's influence.
A tragedy born of self-preservation.
And despite the definitive conclusion of the operation, the death of Baida, the core threat, remains absolutely critical.
Right. The dissection was a ruse to fool the U.S. into thinking Baida was dead, allowing the real one to slip away. And while we now know the real Baida is dead, the plot itself is still active.
The operation is, as the source states, cocked. The mechanism is ready to fire. It's just waiting for a final signal only Baida knew.
The signal he attempted to write on Bern's thigh.
And the 12 cans of aerosolized plutonium are in 12 U.S. cities. The 12 mentors are sleeping.
So secrecy is paramount. If Baida's death is revealed, the highly compartmentalized operation could potentially be reconstructed or triggered by a contingency plan.
The longer covert and the intelligence community can keep Baida's death a secret, the more time counterterrorism has to hunt for those 12 sleeping mentors and neutralize the delivery systems before the attack can commence.
And Paul Bern, the man thrust into this nightmare, survived.
The pistol shot was just a flesh wound, missed the bone entirely. He entered the operation as a civilian forensic artist and emerged having executed 2 men, an international terrorist and a rogue contractor.
And the experience fundamentally transformed him. Specifically, his ability to perceive other people. He acquired what the sources call the gift of insight.
He realized that a man's face is far more than just a collection of physical features he recreates in clay. It is a physical representation of his personality, of his soul.
This is the ultimate convergence of the Alice factor and the Jude experience.
I think so. Bern, through intense trauma and necessity, developed a heightened awareness akin to Alice's feeling tone detection. He could now see past the superficial reconstruction and the conscious mask people wore.
He gained the ability to truly identify the face of the assassin, to see the disconnect between the presented persona and the brutal intent underneath.
His professional craft, built on physical measurements, was now infused with this profound, visceral psychological understanding. It made him an exponentially more effective forensic artist.
So what does this all mean? This deep dive reveals an incredible confluence of chance and high-stakes survival.
I mean, the very security of the American heartland hinged on the astonishing, horrific coincidence that an unassuming forensic artist in Austin possessed an identical skull to a murdered CIA agent.
Without that single physical match, the deception would have failed instantly.
And the depth of Baida's strategy is a chilling takeaway. His analysis of post-9/11 security, that the heartland offered higher casualty potential with lower security risk, forced the U.S. intelligence community into a desperate last-minute impersonation using a civilian.
And Bern was forced to rely not on training, but on pure instinct and the genetic mimicry of a brother he didn't even know he had.
He was playing a role inherited from a life he never lived.
And that leads us back to the final, chilling fragment of intelligence. Bern is left with a scar on his thigh and a mysterious final number scrawled there by a dying man.
The key that holds the signal code necessary to stop 2 kilos of plutonium from being aerosolized across 5 major American cities.
That signal, that single remaining piece of critical intelligence, is now locked inside the consciousness of a civilian who was never supposed to be there.
Which raises an important question for you, the listener. When you're facing a crisis built entirely on deception, and you're armed only with the overwhelming chaotic information of the moment, how much can you truly trust your foundational instincts? And what price are you willing to pay to decipher the one final truth that stands between security and catastrophe? That puzzle is still waiting to be solved.